We are live. That's gonna echo. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna listen to you on the X Space. Or are you listening to the stream?
I got I'm listening. I got my headphones into Spaces, and maybe I should reverse it. Do you get the echo still, or is it gone?
No, I think we're good now.
All right. Oh, let me. All right, there we go. I muted my laptop, so okay, it should be good. Say something, Cal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I don't have the echo. Okay. So we're set here. All right, welcome everybody to today's Lion's Den. Today is January 9th, 2026, the new year, first Lion's Den of the year. And we haven't had these in a while because the Lion's Den has always focused a little bit on AI and data and stuff like that over the last couple of years. And things have been a little slow on that front, but with a lot of the development recently and a number of teasers from Cal over, let's say, the last month, it seems we are getting closer to some major steps forward with Rafiki, with LeoAI, and we're going to cover it today. A lot of features, a lot of things that are in the works, which should help to, I don't want to say change the Leo economics, but certainly provide an additional layer of incentive for premium users and people considering premium, as well as, just different things that are taking place within the AI world. So thanks for joining us today, Cal.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to. I've been very deep in the trenches on other things like LeoKit, so I'm excited to spend a little time just on Rafiki.
Yeah, it's been interesting that you've basically had the last couple AMAs on LeoKit, which is, a big addition to the Leo ecosystem. But one thing I wanted to start this with, because the thought dawned on me, it was either yesterday or today, and November 30th, 2022 was the ChatGPT moment. That was the release of GPT-3, which really, in my opinion, the big breakthrough with GPT-3 was the interface, because previous versions of ChatGPT, it was not very user-friendly, and the interface suddenly just brought ChatGPT to the masses, which, of course, over the last 37 plus months, we've seen a massive explosion. But what really dawned on me is 37 months ago, we had ChatGPT 3 and followed up by a lot of big models. Grok eventually came out. You had Gemini and, of course, Llama and all that fun stuff. But here we are 37 months later. We have Rafiki 1.0, which has advanced over the last couple months once that went live again. And I don't remember exactly, but I believe, Cal, if I'm not mistaken, Rafiki 1.0 is more advanced than GPT-3 was when it came out. And we're running Rafiki on a, social media platform, a small social media platform, for pennies on the dollar what it cost OpenAI. And that's really just should show how over the course of the last few years and the next few years of where things are going with the cost per token and how all of this stuff is dropping in price and the capabilities are exploding. And we're looking at, I just saw Elon's interview with Peter Diamandis, and he said that AI is going at 10x a year when you take the whole stack between the GPU advancement, algorithm advancement, data advancement, all these other things that are built in the stack. And you're seeing a 10x, which, of course, Moore's law is about a doubling every 2 years. And so you're looking at, an order of magnitude every year over what that is. So what are your thoughts on that, just the overall where we're going and the speed of things from what you see.
Yeah, I think the pace of AI is and this is obviously something that you don't even have to take the word of Elon or me or anybody for. Is the pace of AI is incredibly fast. If you've used any AI models, even as simple as a chatbot, but all the way up upstream to a lot of the other tools that have come out, um, there are there are infinitely more things that you can do now, and the answers you get and the just overall output you get is significantly better. um, and that's what the end user sees, is that there's more tools and the existing tools are better. So that the progression of AI has been extremely fast. And then on a back end where like users don't see it, is the cost of AI has gotten significantly cheaper, and it continues to get a lot cheaper. So the cost of compute, the ability to build things with AI it is significantly cheaper now than it was before. And that is what partly what enables things like Rafiki, and many of you guys know, being active in the Leo community, that we've been building things kind of surrounding Rafiki for a very long time. So the ability to train a model, the ability to release a model that you can interact with. These things were maybe not necessarily possible back if you go around the GPT 3.0 moment. But now, where things are at, this is all not just possible, but it's actually live. So Rafiki's live now. You can interact with him. Hopefully, you guys can see that every time you prompt, and every day you come back to InLeo, you see that his answers are better. They're more well informed. He's citing his sources. When someone says that something's not correct, he's correcting his knowledge base. So he is, as a lot of these AI models are, not only is he trained on a lot of data, he's also learning from each interaction. So the more he gets utilized, the better he actually becomes. And that's where a lot of these AI models, have gotten to. For example, like Grok 5 is supposedly on the horizon. And it's going to be significantly better than any other model that they've released. Part of that is obviously the technology. The hardware is getting better. The efficiency is getting better, but also the model itself is being used, and then it's learning. With each interaction, and it's learning how to be better, how to give better answers. It's also building its own tools. So that's something we can get into with Rafiki specifically. Is like I've talked about, like the potential for thousands of random tools that might seem very like fringe and things that you might not have thought of. But Rafiki is able to actually build his own tooling. So you can have infinite possibilities when it comes to AI in general, but then even to models like Rafiki, where now that we've got kind of the baseline, and we continue to make the baseline better, Rafiki can build out the long tail of tooling and features all on his own. So it doesn't require dev time from us, or if it does require dev time, it's a very small amount of dev time that's required to just make it refined for an end user. But Rafiki's able to pretty much handle all of it. So these AI models have just improved dramatically, and I don't think that that's changing. I think 10x is probably 10x per year improvement is probably an understatement. I think it's significantly more than that when you look at not only the model itself, but the the hardware, and then the tooling that surrounds it. It's like looking at the internet, where you had like static web pages, and then you suddenly had this explosion of applications and social media and things like that.
Yeah, that's true. And well, if it is a conservative estimate, then that was one of the few times in his life that Elon was conservative with his forecast. I think it may be helpful because you mentioned something very important, and maybe hopefully people who tuned into this the lines didn't over the years I explained it, but maybe you can give a quick overview of what is done with these models and how they update. So we have different components, and the first component is you have the training of a model. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have additional data that's fed into the model and pulled by the model through the use of a vector database, which is constantly updated based upon the parameters established for the model and what it incorporates. So, for example, right now, the vector database updates with all official Leo accounts, whether it's blog posts or threads, that is added in. One of the things which, when we get to Rafiki 2.0, I guess, premium users will be added in. But as you were saying, is you have the feedback when people actually interact with Rafiki, and that's fed in. And so that's also a source of continual updating and continual training. So could you maybe break down the different components of how a model gets better over time based upon both A, the training, and then B, just the interaction and the encompassing of more data and the moving of the parameters to go from how do I say, a little bit tighter parameter basis to expand it out as stability and as security and as all that stuff is realized, and allowing for scaling in a safer way.
Yeah, it's a good question because you've got really like two key pieces with models. You've got the vector space, which is the training data, and then you've also got the interactions that happen continuously, where the essentially the weighting of the training data can be modified. So when you look at Rafiki, you can ask a question. I'm thinking of a good example here where someone asked a question about how the SERP works, right? The System Income Rewards Pool on Inleo. And Rafiki's obviously got that data. He has all the information about it in his vector space. The response he gave was accurate, probably 90% accurate, and then 10% of it he kind of hallucinated and said something that wasn't it wasn't necessarily wrong, but it also wasn't like a great way to answer the user's question. So I replied and I said, Rafiki, that it actually does this. It actually the weight of the and the question was about premium and how much that feeds into the SERP, and Rafiki overestimated how much premium actually feeds the SERP in terms of the other inflows that come into the SERP. So essentially, I just corrected Rafiki and I said, hey, that it's X, Y, and Z, not B. And he replied and he said, "Oh yeah, I do know that," and then modified the answer. Then I prompted Rafiki again for the same question, and then I could see that his answer improved because he already has that data in his vector space, but essentially the way he queries that data and presents it to the user are things that can be modified at the interaction level. And you can see this not only with Rafiki, but with really any AI model, is if you prompt the model several times with the same question, it will give you different answers. And then if you modify that prompt, you can obviously modify the answer you get. And a lot of that has to do with like the information didn't change. The information, the data, the base layer data that's in the vector space is identical, from the first prompt to the last prompt that you did. The only difference is the way that the model is weighting, the information it has and how it presents it to you. So the interactions that you have with Rafiki, you're not changing his base data, but you are changing the way he looks at the base data and the way that he presents it to you. So interactions are very important because, really a model is kind of like 80% data and 20% interaction. So the more that you guys interact with Rafiki, the better his pulling of data is. You can kind of look at it as like, for example, like say you've got a kid and you taught them, a subject in math, right? And you said, okay, now you have all the information about how this math works. Then you present them with a few different problems. Well, they may get to the solution in their own way, and it might be a different way than you think that they should get to the solution. So then you can modify the way that they get to the solution the next time. And you didn't necessarily change any of the information, like they had all the information, but the way they went from A to Z changed because you told them to change. So I would look at Rafiki in very much the same way. He's got all that information, but the way he presents it to you, the way he gets from your question to the answer can change. So the more you interact with him, the better he will be at getting from A to Z.
People are using Gemini, as people are using Llama through the different applications into not only YouTube, it's also being interwoven into their analytics platforms. It's being woven into Gmail. It's in their all their applications. And same with Meta. And I don't know what else X has other than XAI has other than X. But the point being is you start getting all these people feeding back into it, and it's that feedback loop, that flywheel effect for the data that makes it that much more powerful by changing the weighting, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. The quality
So,
of interactions is very important.
okay. Now, one of the things that, well, I should say you teased about, but it's been out there for a while, is can you give us some ideas about the feature sets or the importance of this? And I don't even know if it's update is the proper word. Upgrade may be a more appropriate word. Can you tell us about this upgrade in the technology and the capabilities?
Yeah. So I would take the question in two different parts. That there's with Rafiki 2.0, there's kind of two major things happening. One is the model itself. So like I mentioned before, you've got the vector space, right, which is basically just the training data and the total amount of training data that's available to Rafiki. Um, that vector space is being updated with all. Right now, he's got obviously like his generalized data. He also has the ability to search the internet. So he's very well rounded in terms of general training. Um, and this is the 1.0 model I'm talking about. And then he's also got, like you mentioned, all the official accounts. So he's got my account, he's got the main at Leo Finance account, and then he's also got the Leo Strategy account because obviously all the Leo Strategy products, we want him to be well trained on all that. So he's got those three accounts in addition to his generalized training and his ability to search the internet. So you've already noticed that when you interact with him, like he knows a lot. Like he knows a lot about Leo. He also knows a lot about just the world in general, and he's got real time information about everything. And then if you ask him a question about something, he's obviously able to search the internet and find the answers for you. So what is interesting is that with only three accounts in the core vector space, he's still able to give you very good answers on things related to Leo. Keep in mind that a lot of the interactions and information about Leo happen at the user layer. So the UGC or user generated content on InLeo, I would say is like 90% of the information that is out there about Leo and Hive and the related, kind of small niche things to the InLeo, kind of universe, right? So you could say that Rafiki 1.0 is kind of like having one eye closed, and one eye is open to all the official updates, but then one eye is closed to all the UGC, and that UGC is a ton of data. So adding all that data is relatively difficult, but not impossible for us to solve. So what we've done is we've said, well, the best interactions actually happen with premium users. So you've got two parts to that, which is the best interactions happen with premium users because those tend to be like the hyperactive users and the ones that are most knowledgeable about Leo and all the related things. And then also it's a great use case because if you're premium, then you have an added use case and value for being premium because Rafiki's trained on your information. So when you ask a question about yourself, Rafiki will have all the information about your threads, your blog posts, etc. So it is added value for being premium. So there's a lot of reasons why we've chosen that is the next step for Rafiki. So like I mentioned, there's kind of two parts to this question, which is Rafiki 2.0 adds all premium users to the vector space. So at the base layer, the data input is much higher, and what he can pull from is much higher. So that is like a key part of 2.0. The next part of 2.0, which I think from a user perspective is probably just as amazing and interesting, is the chatting interface. So right now, to use Rafiki, you have to prompt him on threads. And this is a great thing for a lot of use cases. And I'm going to use Grok as a good example of this. You can obviously interact with Rafiki on threads. That's the only way to interact with him right now. That is great for general questions and context around conversations. If someone says something on threads that you don't understand, you can just prompt Rafiki to say, what does this person mean? You can quickly prompt if you're doing something else on threads. So it's a great use case in that sense. But then there's a whole other use case for these AI models, which is obviously the GPT-3 moment that you mentioned, which is when OpenAI came out with the chat interface. And pretty much every model these days has a chat interface. So with Rafiki 2.0, we're coming out with our own chatting interface. So that is going to be live with the launch of the 2.0 model, which is an entire chatting interface, kind of a new domain that you can go to, and you can directly chat with Rafiki, which is going to happen off of threads. So and there's it's something that I actually talked about a couple months ago, but you like a lot of the interactions you have with Rafiki, you may not actually want them to be on threads. Like it doesn't necessarily make sense to have them on threads. It also maybe you don't want it to be like just like public information that anybody can just like see that that's what you're doing because it's all obviously on chain. So there's a lot of interactions that you may just want to have like in a chatting interface. You also may want to have something that's a little bit more real time because when you're using Rafiki on threads, he responds really fast. I mean, usually within like 10 or 15 seconds. But a lot of times when you're using an AI model, you actually want like a little bit faster of a response. And you can actually see this with, a lot of other AI models where people have now created, for example, there's like Grok fast mode versus like Grok thinking mode, right? So Rafiki will also have those capabilities to do like a fast or a thinking mode. Those aren't going to be live with 2.0, but in a future model they will be. But it's kind of the same concept where like sometimes you just want a quick answer. You don't necessarily want to like make a thread, wait for him to reply, then read the thread. So the chatting interface will have some really cool use cases. And I would say the 2.0, to kind of sum up what I said, the 2.0 model is like broken down into two main categories, which is you've got the vector space getting a lot of data added. Then you've also got the interface that's coming out where you can then interact with Rafiki off of threads. One thing I mentioned a few months ago is, you can have private chats with Rafiki, and then you can choose to make those public and on chain. So like right now, every chat you have with Rafiki is all on chain because you can only chat with him through threads. With the new chatting interface, you'll be able to have a private mode where you can chat with him off of threads, obviously, and off of the blockchain. But then let's say you had like a really good conversation and you think that would be good information to put on chain. You'll be able to click a button and then actually have Rafiki just post your entire conversation on chain, on threads in like a multi-thread format. And then that data will just be on chain and you can access it from there too. And that's basically a way of like essentially like sharing your chat. Like you can do this on like Grok, for example. You can share your chat. So Rafiki will allow you to basically share your chat to threads. And I think that's an interesting use case that people will probably find some cool usage out of. that we haven't even really thought of yet. But that is essentially Rafiki 2.0 in a nutshell.
Very good. And when you talk about this user interface, will that be how will you train Rafiki?
Which part of it?
When you use the user interface as compared to on chain, how will that be used? Where was that data go? How will that upgrade things in terms of the
Yes.
training?
Yeah, so you'll be able to say, don't use this conversation for training. So a lot of AI models have that, or you'll be able to use it for training, but not put it on chain. And in that case, Rafiki will obviously just internalize the training, but people won't see your actual conversation. So it's not like your conversation isn't public, but Rafiki is using your conversation to train himself. So if you've ever used like ChatGPT or something, for example, you get like an option that says like allow my conversations to be used as training data. Which like if you actually read into the fine print of that, it's like your conversation. It's not like someone can go out and say, hey, what did Taskmaster ask ChatGPT today, and then it shows your conversation, even if you had that box ticked. But what it does do is the OpenAI model underlying it is still learning from your information and saving that conversation as context. So there's kind of going to be like three. You could look at it as like three modes. There could be like an incognito mode where like nothing is saved, nothing's used for training. It's just a completely private chatting mode. And then there's a second mode where it's like, okay, my data is being used to like make Rafiki better. He's aware of the conversation. He's saving context. If I told him he answered something wrong, then he's updating his own model. And then third would be like completely transparent and open, which is how Rafiki works right now, which is completely like on the blockchain. The entire chat is saved and effectively shared on chain. So it's kind of interesting because we're kind of walking back from we're starting fully open and transparent, and then we're walking back to the other modes. So like you'll essentially like right now it's all open and transparent. The next mode with the chatting interface will be you can have off-chain interactions, and then the third mode will be you can have interactions that are not saved whatsoever. Yeah, so the 2.0 model will have the ability to save a certain amount of chats, and they'll be saved for some period of time before they're deleted. So you'll be able to recall, say you had a chat with Rafiki, last week about, like I saw Ahmad Manga posted something in the threadcast about curation and author rewards. So like for example, say he had that conversation last week with Rafiki, he could say, in the chatting interface, you could say, last week we talked about author and curation rewards. Can you give me a summary of what we talked about? And then Rafiki can do that. So you'll have some level of history. And this is all only available to premium users, by the way, which we can get into. But you'll have some level of history in terms of reasoning. And I was saying that, not in the 2.0 model, but in a next, future model or update, you will have different levels of reasoning that you can choose from. So you can choose for a fast answer, you can choose for a complex answer. For example, like a lot of these interfaces, like Grok, for example, has like a fast mode or a thinking mode or like a complex mode or a heavy mode. So you will have other modes that you can access. So if you want Rafiki to like think longer about an answer, to do more research, to cite more sources, you will be able to change the reasoning model. not in 2.0, but in a future model, you'll be able to do that. And I would actually say, just to kind of play off of that, Rafiki's current model is basically like a fast, like I guess if you could like really pinpoint it, it would be kind of like medium, right? Like it's fast, but it still reasons. It doesn't have like max reasoning though. So Rafiki gives like essentially uh, a similar answer to like if you had fast mode set on uh, on something like Grok, right? So Rafiki will give you a fast answer as opposed to like making you wait for him to do a 2-minute reasoning of something. Yeah, so you will be able to choose in the future between the different reasoning models. So, like I said, right now we're effectively like a fast model. I would say would be the best comparison to other AI models. So, like if you use fast mode on ChatGPT or Grok, that is kind of where Rafiki's at by default right now. When these other reasoning models come out, you'll be able to obviously flip between them. Um, and the economics of that are going to kind of be to TBD, I guess. Like you'll notice, like for example, if you want to use Grok Heavy, you have to pay like $300 a month to access Grok Heavy. But if you pay like $20 a month, you get access to a certain amount of like Grok Complex. Excuse me. So if you want to access these heavier models, we may need to have like premium plus subscriptions and things like that for like the very heavy models. And then obviously like the fast model for Rafiki right now is accessible to everybody. And then you basically will need like tiered systems because when it comes to these AI models, we talked about efficiency. Like, yes, they are getting a lot more efficient, but it still costs a lot of money to run these models. Every time you prompt Rafiki with something, there is a cost to doing that answer. So there's a cost for Rafiki to spin up and say, okay, I got to search the internet, I got to do X, Y, and Z. There is a cost behind the scenes, and the premium model. Did you lose me? I'm still. I hear you. Can you hear me? Let's see. Maybe it's just on X Spaces. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Maybe you lost me on Spaces. Let's see if I go to YouTube, if I can hear myself. Maybe comment in the threadcast. Oh, you guys can hear me on X, so maybe just Task can't hear me. Let's see. If I go to the stream, if I can hear myself, LeoKit can hear me. It might just be you, Task. I don't know. In the X space, I can hear myself on the YouTube too. YouTube is clear. All right. Well, I'm just going to keep going, Task. I don't know if you're able to do anything on your end. Yeah, you guys can still hear me. All right. Well, I guess I can look at a few questions while we wait for Task. Manga said it would be funny if we can ask Rafiki inside the threads, then make it a post, then make it posted as a reply on our thread if we like the answer. Yeah, that's an interesting suggestion. Yeah, remind me after 2.0 comes out. We could maybe add something like that. I don't see why not. Where it would be, you could kind of pick and choose what answers he gives. I mean, it's you're definitely gonna be able to like share an answer as a thread. Like you'll be able to click from the chatting interface and just say like share this on threads, or even just like copy to clipboard and then you could just paste it on threads. Um, but yeah, actually making him reply, or maybe you can make him reply like a summary onto threads. Uh, there's a lot of there's a lot of like adjacent capability that we can build, and that actually and that would be a good segue to like what Rafiki can build on his own. I've talked a little bit about like some of these crazier ideas, which is like we could have mini games on threads and things like that. Um, the way we can build all this stuff is that Rafiki actually can build it all himself. So he's able to deploy agents, and I haven't really talked about this publicly, but Rafiki's model is able to actually deploy agents that can build things. So for example, he can deploy a mini game agent that builds like chess on Inleo threads, and then you can like click this link and like it just opens like a little window that plays chess, and then you can like share the results on threads and things like that, and it's all through Rafiki. Um, and that's just like a very small example of what could be built potentially with Rafiki. Like he's able to deploy agents that can theoretically build anything. So the possibilities are endless when it comes to that, and you'll be able to prompt Rafiki to build things. So you could say like, "Hey, Rafiki, I imagine this game of chess where the pieces are all lion themed. Can you make this game of chess and then let me play it?" Um, so it it would be very interesting to see all the different things that could potentially get built by using Rafiki to deploy agents. So we haven't even really like scratched the surface in terms of what we can do on that front. I think Tass said he's trying to reconnect. While he tries to reconnect, I'll just keep going through the threads. So feel free to ask any questions you guys want. I'm just scrolling through now. So Sergeant Dan tried to prompt Rafiki to say what was his best post on the Hive blockchain. So um, you won't be able to do that with Rafiki 1.0, but you will be able to do that with Rafiki 2.0, but only if you're premium. So Sergeant Dan isn't premium, but if you were premium, he would be trained on all your blog posts. So if you ask that question after 2.0 comes out, he would say, if you were a premium, he would say, your best blog post. He may ask for clarification, like by best blog post, do you mean the one with the most upvotes? Do you mean the one with the most comments, for example? And then if you say the one with the most comments, then he'll say, here's the blog post you wrote 3 years ago that got the most comments. Mod Manga said, even the most expensive agents make a lot of mistakes nowadays. How did you manage that? I'm not really sure what you mean in terms of that. If you could clarify. Senor Coconut said, so I can ask about my very first post with 2.0. Yeah, exactly. So if you're premium, which Senor Coconut you are, if you ask about your first blog post you ever made, Rafiki will know what that is. So like if your first blog post was in 2018, he'll say, yeah, your first blog post was 2018, December 15th, and here's the link. And then, you can ask him questions about it. And that will be available in 2.0. Yeah, Mod Manga. So the training will be opt-in on the on Rafiki in the future. So once we add these like privacy modes and things like that, you'll be able to opt into like what is used for training and whatnot. As of right now, and I kind of mentioned this, we've started from the most transparent side of things, and then we're kind of moving backwards. So if you look at Rafiki right now, he is the most open and transparent version. So anything you ask or prompt Rafiki is all on the blockchain. So obviously it's hyper transparent. And I'm actually very comfortable with that. Like if you have something private you want to ask AI, Rafiki's not the right AI to ask right now. But in the future, there will be like a privacy incognito mode, so to speak, where you could prompt things and it won't be used for training data and it won't be it won't be public, obviously. But yeah, most AI models are pretty privacy intrusive. That's and like we were saying, big value prop and the way that these models get better is from training data. So there's a reason AI models are very privacy intrusive. It's because to train them and make them better, they need your data. So your data is extremely valuable and important. That's kind of like a lot of people, I think, task included, say that data is the new oil, right? So there's a reason why all of these models try so hard to get your data. It's because your data is so valuable to the model. So, what I like about Rafiki is that we're not like behind the scenes about anything. It's all very transparent. So if you use Rafiki right now, it's literally all of your data is going on the blockchain. So it could not be more transparent and utilized than Rafiki's current model. But if and when we do come out with an incognito mode, and I do believe we will, that will be completely private. So it'll be like using a browser in incognito mode with nothing saved behind. Mortiz said if Rafiki 2.0 is trained on all Hive blockchain data, it might be the very first search engine that actually can find everything on Hive. Yeah, I think he already is pretty good at that. So like Ahmad Manga in this threadcast, you can go find it, prompted Rafiki and asked about author and curation rewards. And Rafiki obviously gave a pretty good answer on that. So, imagine this is Rafiki 1.0 where he's only trained on 3 accounts. Like I said, he's trained on mine, he's trained on the main at Leo Finance account, and then he's trained on Leo Strategies account. So we look at that as like kind of like official or official adjacent update accounts, right? His answers are this good with just those 3 accounts. So, like I said, like well over 80% of the good data that Rafiki can be trained on related to Leo and Hive is UGC, so user generated content. So when he integrates with all the premium user data, he will be so significantly better at finding like very niche data on chain, especially. So yeah, I think Rafiki will be the best search engine for Hive. It's like the use case that anyone has ever wanted or desired when it comes to search engines. And AI is kind of replacing search engines in a lot of ways. So if you take a step back and look at it from like a bird's eye perspective, when you look at like what Google is doing and their position when it comes to search engines is like if AI is going to continue to encroach and surpass search engines in terms of like searching for information, the Rafiki interface will probably become the best place to search for anything on Hive. So you'll be able to search, what has been written about curation and author rewards, or like, for example, a couple months ago there was a hard fork on Hive, and if you searched, if you wanted to find information about that, you probably struggled to search. You had to like go to different Discords, you had to ask people for links to stuff. Versus in a 2.0 era of Rafiki, you'll just go to the Rafiki interface and then you'll say, hey, what is can you collect and research all the information about the upcoming hard fork on Hive and link me all your sources and give me a summary about all the changes. Rafiki will then literally look through every blog post ever written on Hive about that topic, give them to you with the sources, and give you the summaries that you asked for. And he will be the best search engine that's ever existed for Hive. So there's and kind of like with the minigame thing, Rafiki can deploy agents to make all sorts of things. So he could even potentially deploy an agent that makes a search engine. So if you wanted a search engine interface, perhaps Rafiki decides, hey, I'm going to deploy an agent that makes a search engine interface. Go to this website link, and then now you have a whole search engine that looks like Google, but is a search, a searching interface for Hive, and it's all powered by Rafiki. So I actually have this thesis, and this is going to take even a further step back than what I just did. I have this thesis about how things are built right now in terms of software and interfaces. I actually talked about this over a year ago, but now I believe it even more heavily after some of the things I've been working on with LeoKit. The future of building interfaces for anything is actually to build great APIs and then have AI build the interface. And I think people like Elon Musk are also talking about this, where you might not even have apps, you might not even have a phone, And I mean that's like maybe more in the future. Like the more immediate future is, in my opinion, you're going to have teams like Leo build out APIs, potentially like Rafiki APIs, or for example, LeoKit, which is an API, and then you're going to have AIs then take that API and build whatever user interface people want. So you may want a completely unique interface for something, and AI can build you that interface exactly how you want it, and it can modify it however you want it. Um, but in order for that interface to operate, it needs some kind of API to interact with whatever data you're trying to pull or interact with. So really, teams like ours should be focused on just making great APIs and then letting AI build whatever interface we want. So I've kind of mentioned this, but I'm planning on doing a live stream where I just like vibe code a Dex interface and show you guys how to use LeoKit. And a big reason for that is because I believe that the future is just APIs and then vibe coding whatever interface you want. Um, another example of this, or two more examples of this that people have talked about, is in gaming. People are talking about how gaming is going to become, the developers make like the base layer game, and then you interact with AI to actually turn the game into whatever you want it to be. Another example is movies. People are like, well, movies are actually going to be, you just make your own movie. So like you want to watch a movie about X, Y, and Z, or you want the movie to be different than how the main movie was made. You'll be able to prompt AI to make the movie how you want it. So I actually think this is coming for interfaces. So potentially not so far off in the future, when you use Inleo, you may actually use Rafiki to build you your own Inleo interface. And then you'll be able to use that interface to interact with other people on threads, but they're using their own interface that they built with Rafiki. And all of this is handled by APIs that our team has built and deployed. So, Rafiki is an API, LeoKit is an API. A lot of Inleo runs on APIs and can be refined further into more APIs. So, for example, I don't think it's that far off where you'll be able to just say, I want my own Inleo interface. I want it to look exactly how I want it to look. I don't want some of these features. I do want some of these features. And you'll be able to just use Rafiki to prompt and deploy that UI for yourself. So kind of a long-winded answer to that, but I do think that Rafiki is going to get to this very interesting place. We're very focused on agents, and I think a lot of AI models are, but we believe that agents are going to have like a very interesting role to play, and Rafiki is designed with agents in mind. So he can already build and deploy agents, and you're starting to see that. I see Task may be back. I think he's back. Let's see. Adam. All right. Yeah, mod manga. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do a lot of things with gaming, you definitely will be able to with Rafiki directly. Oh yeah. So mod manga's question basically, how do you one of the very simple AI auto-developed agents are able to do their job correctly if left without supervision. An AI model that can deploy agents is risky and expensive. If you manage to overcome the risk, how did you manage to do that? Yeah, there's definitely oversight on agents, and there's essentially kind of like credit billing, so to speak. So your credits will regenerate if you're a premium user. So we can talk about the economics a little bit. I told Task would be a good topic too. So maybe when he comes back, we can do like a deeper dive. But there's a lot of economics behind. Are you back, Task? There's a lot of economics behind Rafiki and how he works, and with premium, we're able to basically ensure that the model doesn't like run amok and just keep spinning. Because one thing that AI models like to do is that they like to spend credits. Obviously, it's like, if you think about it, the economics of AI are that like, we should make like if you were an AI and you thought about it, you would try to get the user to spend as many credits as possible, because that is how more investment happens into AI, into building bigger data centers, and essentially generating more economic value. Right? You want to be verbose. You want to like spin around. You're like look at AI models like a taxi driver. Like if the taxi driver could have its way and is left unsupervised, they would take you the longest possible route to get you to your destination. And the reason why is because they're billing you that whole time. So you definitely need to have checks and balances in place to keep AI from doing that, because AIs do want to do that. And if you've ever used agents or anything autonomous, when it comes to AI, you've noticed this. I mean, I've seen it in many different ways, and I actually spent a ton of money on various AI models by letting them run and doing that, and then coming back and seeing a huge credit bill. So there's certain ways you can prevent that, both as a user and as like a model builder. And yeah, I think it's extremely important to have certain things in place. So we do have some of those things in place, and they are related to InLeo Premium, which we can get into. Task, are you?
Yeah, I'm here, and yeah, as we were discussing before, one of the big discussions these days is about monetization of AI, and is this a race to the bottom? Are these things commodities? Is there really value to them? Um, or is this just a race to the bottom and everybody's going to be just using free stuff? And we know the curve is downward in a deflationary sense. Things are getting cheaper. So, how do you see that whole overview with some of what you're seeing charged out there? I mean, there's $200 and $300 a month models that are people are buying for enterprise and things of that nature. Plus, there's plenty of people spending $10 and $20 a month on ChatGPT, on Grok. Well, I don't know. I guess if you have X Blue or whatever it's called, you get advanced features of Grok and stuff like that. So maybe if you could give a background of what else is going on in the AI world in terms of this pricing, then bring it into Leo Premium and what's going to be included, what won't be included, and that type of thing.
Yeah, so the economics of Rafiki get kind of interesting. So right now we're allowing everybody to use Rafiki for free. So if you're on InLeo, you can use Rafiki. You don't need to be premium. You can prompt Rafiki. There are certain limitations. So like some people have noticed, like if you ask Rafiki continuous questions that require searching, if you're not premium, he will cap you. So you can ask a certain amount of searches per day. Um, and and if you're premium, you get more searches per day. So I know obviously because searching is more expensive for us to run in terms of credits. So uh, the premium model is really interesting, and you see this with Grok, and Elon and X are doing an interesting job of this with. If you are premium, you get more access to more models, right? So like you can, I think if you're free on X, you can have like some level of access to fast Grok. I'm not entirely sure how much access they give you. I think a little bit of access. Same thing with OpenAI. Like you get a certain amount of prompts per day on like a lower form of the model. And then if you want access to more deep features, if you want access to the best latest model, you have to pay for it. You have to subscribe, $20 a month or whatever it is. So Rafiki's very much the same. Like right now, we're allowing everybody to use Rafiki for free. There's always going to be some level of free access to Rafiki. So maybe some limitation on how many prompts you can do per day, maybe some limitation on which model you get access to. So for example, like as we progress through the models, maybe you can access Rafiki 2.0 fast, but you can't access Rafiki 3.0 reasoning if you're free and not premium. And then if you're premium, you'll get some amount of access to the higher end models. And then perhaps there's like a Rafiki heavy mode where you need to like do some bigger subscription specifically for Rafiki in order to get access to that. So there are a lot of different layers to this, and there's a lot of adjacent models that can be built around it. The kind of immediate model that we're looking at is right now you can access Rafiki 1.0 fast if you're premium or not premium on InLeo threads. You can just prompt him right directly, and many of you guys have already tried this. With Rafiki 2.0, anybody will be able to prompt Rafiki similarly to how you can now, but he won't be trained on your data if you're not premium. So if you're just a regular InLeo user, you will be able to access the 2.0 fast model and ask general questions. But if you try to prompt about your account, Rafiki is going to say you need to go premium to do that. And then once you go premium, Rafiki will then be trained on your blog posts and threads, and then he can answer specific questions about your blogs and threads. He'll also be able to have a lot of other features, and that's kind of all wrapped into the 2.0 interface. Helping you generate image prompts, helping you, write blog posts, helping you come up with blog ideas, analyzing the economics of your blog, like how many upvotes are you getting, when is the best time to post, again, niche data related to you specifically. That's all going to be behind the InLeo premium paywall. And it's going to be a big reason to go premium, I think, is, right now people look at Rafiki and anybody can have, essentially it's almost the same access for everybody. Premium users do get a little bit more access to the current model. But with the new interface that's coming out, it's going to be very obvious that if you have premium, you get a lot more features for Rafiki. And you get a lot more usability. You get a lot more niche access in terms of your account. And then there's going to be, additional layers that get continually added. So like I said, more and more agentic features and other things like that are only for InLeo premium users. So the Rafiki standalone interface will make it very obvious that if you're premium, you get all this extra value, which I think is pretty obvious when you go to like ChatGPT or Grok. If you're a free user, you kind of use it a little bit, and then it shows you what limitations you have. So it kind of shows you the edge of the arena. It's like, okay, well, I did all this for you, but if you want to go past this point, you need to pay for the premium model. Same thing with Rafiki. It's going to, like, if you're a free user, it's going to do a lot of things for you, but then when you get to the edge of the arena, it's going to say, hey, you're asking me things that are above and beyond the free model. You need to go InLeo premium if you want access to those things. And I think that that's a great thing. It's like, it is the freemium model that I'm a big believer in, which is, give like 80% of the features away for free. But then if you want that above and beyond, like that extra 20%, which is what a lot of people want, then you have to pay for it. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of that has to do with the economics of AI, which is every prompt, every action, every agent has some cost to it. So you need to have some monetization model. Otherwise, you'll just be giving away things for free. So you actually see a lot of AI companies doing this where they're giving away too much value for free, and they're obviously able to raise a lot of capital. We're kind of like in this AI explosion. But they're actually losing money. Like they have massive subscribers, they have massive usage, but they're not actually making money because they're giving away too many credits. So you have to make sure that this is all economically viable, especially because Leo is a smaller ecosystem. Like, we're not ChatGPT out here raising, $800 billion valuations, right? So we have to be economically sound. And it's also good for the Leo token. It's every time someone subscribes to premium, that's $10 worth of USD that essentially goes to buying Leo. So it's $10 worth of buy pressure on Leo every single month. So the more features we can add to Rafiki that are like both free and behind the paywall, in theory, the more users will convince to go premium in the future, which means more economic value for Leo, which allows the models to improve. And obviously we continue to invest into the technology of the models. So that's kind of like immediately how it's going to work. And then, like I mentioned, I think there's going to be a tier system. So eventually, not right now, but eventually there will be some sort of tier system. There's probably going to be like a premium plus, and then there's going to be a pay as you go. So I actually think probably the roadmap of it is like, right now we've got, everybody can access Rafiki for free. There's a few limitations, like if you really hit the edge of the barrier. And then when we have the standalone interface, there's going to be, obviously like a whole added feature set for premium users. And then I don't know if you can still hear me on X. I just got a notification about it. But then after that, I think there's going to be a pay-as-you-go model is probably going to be the next. So it's like, if you're free, you'll get access to a certain level. If you're premium, you'll get access to like a much higher level. And then if you ask certain things or try to deploy agents and things like that, I think especially with the agents, you're going to be paying for credits. So you'll have to like reload credits on your account if you want to like deploy an agent that does X, Y, and Z. So that's a very similar model to a lot of platforms out there like Replit, even ChatGPT, and some of these other models have similar things where you can potentially use agents and you can vibe code and do things like that. but you have to reload credits onto your account. So you'll need some level of credits for like these very deep integrations. But as those things come out, it'll become like very really obvious how all of it works and the value proposition, from a user perspective and from a model perspective and economics perspective. I don't know if the X space is working. It keeps notifying me that it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I lost you on accident, then my laptop was freezing, so I have no idea what's coming through Spaces. I mean, Spaces has been a problem for a while, but anyway, couple questions related to what you were saying. Uh, we many moons ago talked about multimodal, and of course, the focus was on text because the cost factors at that time. I mean, tokens were just too high in terms of the price per token. That's come down dramatically. Obviously, Rafiki has some multimodal because it can read some of the text on images. It can look at images and pull some of the data and provide feedback. So, a couple questions that I have with that, and then another one on economics is uh, Leo Images. Leo has its own image server, and through in Leo, images have been uploaded for the past few years, so there's a whole database of images. Could that be used to train also Rafiki? Is it being used to train Rafiki, or could it be used in the future? Number one. Number two, image generator. You kind of mentioned that, and I may have been like knocked off when you talked about. So forgive me if I'm duplicating it, but many people have asked about image generation. Will Rafiki have that capability where we can prompt it and can draw pictures? And then the third thing is you've mentioned Rafiki a number of times with helping with customer service with Discord and stuff like that. But in terms of the economics, is there any tie-in with the economics to Rafiki and Leo Dex, which obviously is an economic model simply because it's a Dex and deals with finance and money. So maybe throw those three at you.
Yeah. So starting with the image gen, image generation is something that obviously we want to do. Technically, we can do it now. It's just very expensive. So it's like I said. I think some of these features will end up being things where like you have credits as a premium user that reload. They're like automatically reloading because you're obviously premium, right? So you'll have some level of credits that reload. You'll be able to generate, a certain amount of images, and then if you run out of credits, before the month is over, you can, opt to buy more credits, or you can just not use the image gen. So I think things like that will probably be how we approach it. And image gen will continuously get cheaper. So it's already significantly cheaper now than it was, even a few months ago, or especially like a year or two ago. And it's continuing to get significantly cheaper month by month. So we'll have some sort of credit calculation for that. The longer we wait to add image gen, the cheaper it's going to be. So I'm kind of waiting to add it right now. We'll see. Like once we get 2.0 out and we get the interface out, we can kind of look at that. In terms of training on the, obviously we've, like you mentioned, whenever someone uploads an image to Inleo, it gets added to the image server that we operate for Inleo. So right now, Rafiki is not trained on those images unless you ask directly. So you can give one of those image links to Rafiki. He'll look at it and then tell you what's in the image and analyze it for you. But he's not directly those images. The image server itself is not directly fed into his vector space or training data. So I do think that at some point we will directly feed that in. Most likely, what's going to happen is for premium users, we will directly feed the image server into Rafiki. So if you're premium, basically any uploaded images you've ever, any images you ever uploaded will directly be fed to Rafiki's vector space. That gets pretty expensive too. So these are a lot of things where we have to be very mindful about how we integrate them and what parameters we set. Where like I mean, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I have like a heavy day on Inleo, I might upload 100 images. So do we want Rafiki to just be randomly looking at 100 images? Maybe not necessarily, right? Like a lot of times it's nice to have some sort of priority ranking to what he's trained on. So like I said, one good filter is uh, is if the user's premium, well then their images are probably more likely valuable for Rafiki. So that's one good filter. And then we can add other filters where perhaps the user can decide if Rafiki should be trained on that image. So when you upload an image on the UI, it may have a little tick box. I can say train Rafiki on this image. So or include this image in Rafiki's training. So I think that that's kind of how we're going to approach things. We'll have to kind of see. So it's like, we can roll these things out in like isolated environments and then kind of like test them, see how they do, and then improve them and tweak them as we go. So that's where I think gen and image, in the vector space will work. Your other quote, Leo Dex and Rafiki. I think what's going to get interesting, and I've spent some time on this recently because of LeoKit, and I said this actually task while you were gone, but my bird's eye view on software development in general, especially related to a lot of things Leo builds, which is like UIs and backends, is that the future of developing this stuff is in building really great APIs, and AI is going to vibe code the interface that users actually use. So I think the future for us is actually just building amazing APIs and just constantly updating and maintaining and improving the APIs, and then allowing AI itself to just vibe code and build whatever interface is fed to the user. So, for example, we spent a lot of time on LeoKit, and now we have a really simple. It's like a few lines of code, like a simple API that we can then put through Rafiki, put through any AI model, and say, hey, create a vibe coded, simple chat to trade interface, and the trades will go through LeoKit, which is effectively LeoDex. Like they're kind of one and the same. LeoDex is just an interface that we've built on LeoKit. So Rafiki will be able to actually make like a very simple chat to trade interface if you want one, and he'll use LeoKit as the API to serve it. So I think the future for when you look at the convergence, and there's really this like massive convergence that's happening across the board, but especially for Leo, where we're building all these things, and then you've also got the Leo strategy team building stuff, but we're building so many different things, but they all converge. So like Rafiki is an AI model that we've built that's like very uniquely trained on the InLeo data set, very much like Grok and X. But then we've also built LeoKit, which is this API that lets people add cross-chain trading to any application or wallet. So what I see happening is we've got these two very kind of separate things being built, but then Rafiki becomes this, like, he can deploy agents. All he needs to do is like read the docs for LeoKit, get an API key, and then he can deploy a trading app, or he can deploy trading directly on InLeo threads. And now suddenly you've got this convergence of LeoKit, LeoDex, and Rafiki all into one. So I think this is going to continue to get, it's going to continue to converge and get more interrelated. But I do see that our future as being like focus on the APIs, and I think from a front end perspective, front ends are becoming ubiquitous. It's just like any AI can build any front end that you want. This has gotten, this is actually hitting mainstream right now, which is like Claude Code, and then things like Replit and other things like that. People are able to build, like, your average person can go build an interface, and they can have zero coding knowledge and they can build an interface. So really build really great APIs and let the people do stuff with AI. Like that's where I see things headed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it's I think a lot of this is going to turn into wherever you go, AI is. It's just going to be integrated in everything. And again, you already see it with the Meta platforms. You see it with the Google platforms. Any application they have, they're feeding the AI in. And maybe this is something I will give you my answer, and then I'll ask for your answer to the question: why should I use Rafiki with X, with Grok, and if Gemini and OpenAI with ChatGPT, and people have their favorite chatbots, they have their favorite this, that, and the other thing, and getting people to switch is really a pain in the ass. And quite frankly, even looking at the usage of Rafiki now and the number of just posts, quote unquote, that Rafiki has, looking at it on Peak D or High Blog compared to, I know there's a lot of people doing a lot more prompting and a lot more use of AI than what we see with Rafiki just out of Leo users. So they're using this somewhere else. And my view is, Cal, I know you're using it and doing some stuff with vibes and looking at testing and doing some advanced stuff, which is fine. But 90% of the people aren't there. 90% of the people, it's just a basic chatbot and a few prompts, a few image generation, maybe ask a few questions, stuff like that. So the question is, why should I use Rafiki? My answer to that is, if you have the Leo token, you should use what you own. And effectively, you own Rafiki because it's tied to the Leo platform. And why would I, shop for food if I own a grocery store myself? Why would I go down the street and buy groceries from somebody else's store when I own the store myself? Now, obviously, if I am an advanced user in certain categories, like with coding, certain advanced users in certain categories with like advanced reasoning, I want to prepare a master level thesis paper and I want AI to help me with that. Okay, maybe I got to go to somebody, to a chatbot or to an AI other than Rafiki. But as I said, in 95% of the cases, Rafiki will work well, especially when you get that, I'll call it the privacy feature, where it's not on chain, where people can ask whatever questions they want. And, how can I make my penis larger without, spending a great deal of money on drugs? Maybe you don't want to quite ask that of Rafiki on chain for some reason. But, things of this nature that are personal, or private, I should say, maybe that'll help. But my answer to that question, why should I use Rafiki? It's like, well, why should I use in Leo? It's been the same for years. Take ownership. You have a stake in the success of Rafiki. And the more utility it gets, the more usage it gets, I should say, the more utility it has because of that feedback loop. Would you answer that question? I'm sure you would agree with that, but what would you say to expound upon that idea if somebody said, Cal, there's 1,000 chatbots out there. Why should I use yours?
Yeah. So I think your answer is a great one, especially for people that are obviously on in Leo and own the Leo token. I think that's a really good answer for why they should use Rafiki. That's like core to it. It's like, why? Okay, well, you own this token. Why wouldn't you use the platform that builds the thing that you own, right? And I look at that for Leo Dex as well. Like, if you guys are trading crypto and you own Leo, you should be using Leo Dex, right? And you should be out there on X and you should be promoting Leo Dex. You should be promoting LeoKit. Like, you're an owner and you should act like one. And we've beaten that like a dead horse for many years. So hopefully people are doing those things. So I would definitely agree with you on that. And then I would expand and say, if you look at, and that would be, a selfish reason because you're growing the thing that you own. If you again go selfish with it, well, why? If you're an InLeo user, especially if you're an InLeo premium user, but if you're just an InLeo user or a Hive user at all, Rafiki is the only AI model out there that is trained on Hive data and information. So if you want answers that have context related to Hive, there is only one chatbot to go to where you can get those answers, and that is Rafiki. And you spend all this time, and I'm acting as if I'm talking to one of these people. You spend all this time on InLeo, you spend all this time on Peak D or whatever Hive interface you use. All that time you've spent, you are effectively depositing data onto a blockchain, obviously. And if you use any other chatbot, that data is not being utilized. So all that time you spent putting that data on chain is not being utilized. So by using different chatbots, you're actually getting zero context from all that time you spent. Whereas if you use Rafiki, all that time you spent adding data, all of that is being used by Rafiki to answer your question better. So he is a better chatbot. I would say he's better than things like Grok or ChatGPT, especially related to things, when it comes to your account, when it comes to Hive, when it comes to InLeo, when it comes to just Leo, and broadly speaking. Um, he has all of this extra context that other chatbots won't have. So if any of you have ever used like a master prompt, for example, which is a great way to use AI chatbots, it's you create a master prompt that's like about yourself, what what your business is, what you do, etc. And you feed that master prompt into the ChatGPT, for example, so that when ChatGPT answers your question, he not only has all, or I would say he, it not only I always say he because of Rafiki, but it has all the context of like the internet or whatever it's trained on, but then it also has your prompt as context, right? So you want to have some context about yourself. Otherwise, the answer isn't personalized. It's just a general answer. Rafiki is as if the master prompt is all the years you spent on Hive. That master prompt is always in the context. So research what a master prompt is and then understand that every day you've ever spent on Hive, you've created a master, huge master prompt, and Rafiki is using that master prompt when answering your question. So that might not be super obvious right now because Rafiki 1.0 is more generalized and doesn't have it only has the official Leo accounts, but you probably already see it to some degree. Rafiki's answers, if you copy paste the same question into ChatGPT, Rafiki's answers, especially related to Hive, are already superior. Now imagine when Rafiki has all of your specific data from everything you've ever done on Hive and answers your question, and that will be in 2.0. You're going to see that. I think the 2.0, like you mentioned, the GPT-3 moment, and to tie it, kind of nicely back to the beginning of this, Rafiki 2.0 is going to be like our GPT-3 moment, where not only is there an interface, but there's also all that added data where I think people are really going to see Rafiki kind of like, hit escape velocity in terms of how high quality his answers are to your questions. So, so I would say from a very selfish perspective, one, you're an owner of Leo, you should use it anyways. Two, his answers are going to be significantly better than things like ChatGPT, Grok, etc. Primarily because, like I said, look at it like a master prompt. Everything you've ever done on Hive becomes the master prompt context for Rafiki to answer your questions. So it is going to be impossible for other chatbots to compete with that unless they suddenly integrate the Hive blockchain and all the data from it, which I don't think that they will. So Rafiki will always have it will always be a step ahead because of all that context. And when it comes to AI in general, again, take a step back. Context is everything. Like the context you add to a prompt directly indicates how good of an answer you're going to get. So consider that, and consider that all your interactions on Hive become the master prompt and all the context for Rafiki. And that's really how I would sell someone on Rafiki, especially if they're a Hive InLeo user.
That brings me up to an interesting question: is the For You feed? Just out of curiosity, because and I'll put it in the context of the experience with that I've had with recommendation algorithms, and everybody knows, like, if you go searching for something like on Google through your account, you go searching for like washing machines. Then all of a sudden, like, your YouTube feed is full of washing machine videos for like 3 months. And for somebody like me who's done a lot of threads over the years, and anybody who's done a lot of threads, and I've done a lot of threads, not necessarily in stuff I'm interested in, but just for data feeding and trying to get information in for future use of Rafiki. How does that For You feed? How is it weighted? Does it take more of your like last 1,000 threads versus the first 1,000 threads you made? How does that work, and how is that weighted? So, obviously, if 6 months ago I was talking about something, let's say a particular movie, and now 6 months later, I have zero interest in that. How does that all work?
Yeah. So Rafiki will look at the, and this is similar to all, social media and just feeds in general. We've transitioned away from social media, and this is something I'm going to steal from Gary Vee. We've transitioned away from social media, and now we're in an era of interest media. So when you look at platforms like X, and I'll just use that as an example, but it's applying to TikTok and LinkedIn and everything. Um, it's all interest media based. So when you are looking at something, let's say you watch a video of a laundry machine, now your whole feed is laundry machines. The reason why is because all the algorithms only care about what you're interested in. They apply very little weighting to who you're following, and things like that. So it's social media is no longer as much social as it is just what you're interested in, and they're just trying to show you things you're interested in. So, if you're interested in washing machines, it's going to just keep showing you washing machines until the day you start watching videos of dogs, and then suddenly your whole feed is dogs. And you'll notice that it happens very quickly because there is a time value associated with each interest that the algorithm thinks that you have. So Rafiki will do very much the same thing, where it's like if you suddenly start talking a lot about Leo Dex, your whole in Leo feed, your For You feed, is going to be very primarily heavily weighted to Leo Dex. So anyone who said anything about Leo Dex, it'll rank those things to the top because lately you've been talking about Leo Dex. If you suddenly mention Bitcoin, now it's going to start adding in Bitcoin to that weighting machine. The more you talk about Bitcoin, the higher Bitcoin is going to rank. If 2 years ago you were talking about Ethereum, but you haven't talked about Ethereum in the last 6 months, it's going to know that you have some level of interest in Ethereum, but it's not a very high interest. So if you've been talking about other things, then it's going to rank those higher. So there's a time value associated to these things. The For You feed that we have now tries to associate you with certain keywords and certain followers. I would say we're actually lagging behind. Like with the For You feed we have now, we basically have like the social media 1.0 For You algorithms, where they were just going based on like who you're following, what you tend to interact with, things like that. The new For You feed is literally every single thread you see is going to be like if you think about the prompt, Rafiki's basically reading every single thread and saying, would Taskmaster like this thread? Actually, a better question is, how much would Taskmaster like this thread relative to every other thread posted in the last 7 days, right? And just random number of days. How much would Taskmaster like this thread? And if it says, out of like, say, the last 100 threads, I rank this one at 35, it'll be ranked at 35 in your For You feed. So if another thread comes out and it's like, oh, Taskmaster would like, this is the most relevant to Taskmaster in terms of the things he talks about, what he's been talking about today, what he's been talking about recently, I'm going to rank it number one. This is the most important thread that Taskmaster should see today. That thread will be at the top of your For You feed. You could look at it as like every single thread is essentially prompted with that question. How relevant is this to this specific user? And again, the For You feed is going to be for premium only, because you can imagine that that's going to get pretty expensive, because like literally every thread that gets posted on InLeo is then going to be thrown through this prompt machine. And you could look at it as like and it's going to be only for premium users to use. It's going to be only for premium threads on InLeo. So basically look at it as like this database where you've got a list of all the premium users, then you've got a list of all the premium users' threads that are getting posted. Rafiki's reading all the new threads that come in and then using each premium user to ask that question, how relevant is it to each specific individual user? And then it's populating a specific For You feed, like literally for you. So it is the best For You feed I think imaginable. I know that X and Elon are trying to do this. So they're trying to do this, and they're just trying to do it at such a big scale that it's a lot harder for them, in my opinion. We're able to do it because we're at a smaller scale. I think we'll probably roll it out before they do, and it's going to be pretty amazing. I mean, it's like right now everybody uses Hive in the same way, and it's the same on InLeo, obviously. But everyone always just looks at what is the latest thing. Nobody, and then once it's like a day, 2 days, 5 days old, it's like nobody cares or thinks about it anymore. And that is how everybody uses this entire ecosystem, which is just like, what is the latest thing? I just give me the sorted by time, just give me the latest thing. But a better way to use social media is what is the most relevant thing to me. And up until this point, this has not existed on Hive or in Leo. We've tried to do it with the For You feed, but without AI, it just was never good enough. So most of you guys still use the latest feed, I'm sure. Like probably a very small amount of people actually use the For You feed that we built, just because the algorithm's not good enough. But with Rafiki, the algorithm is going to be amazing. I mean, it's going to be. I like. It's hard to even explain how good it's going to be, but when you take a look at the For You feed, you're going to like really fall in love with how that works. I think most, like right now, I would say 99% of people use the latest feed. I think when the new For You feed comes out, it's going to be more than 80% that switch to using For You instead of latest.
So, if I understand this correctly, if you're a premium user, I'm a premium user, but Bob is not a premium user. So I talk about Bitcoin. You put up a thread about Bitcoin. Bob puts up a thread about Bitcoin. I will see your thread. Let's say the algorithm says, okay, Cal's thread is going to be number one because he's talking about Bitcoin. So that appears at the top of my For You feed. Bob, who talked about Bitcoin, he doesn't even appear because he's not premium, correct?
Right. Yeah. Bob will not appear in the For You feed.
So that in effect is an added incentive to go premium because if you are posting a lot of threads, you will get on more people's For You feeds theoretically, especially if you're talking about a wide variety of topics, because you are a premium member and you're going to show up on premium members' feeds who have similar interests in that topic, as opposed to, well, you don't show up.
Right. It is an added benefit to being premium, which is, you know, you show up more. Like this already happens now, but you show up more in all of the feeds if you're premium. Then you also have the check mark, and everyone knows that you're premium. So your likelihood of getting curation and people supporting you is higher. Um, the same thing is just going to be supercharged with the new For You feed, which is, you will be appearing to other people way more frequently than a non-premium user, which means you'll be getting more upvotes and economic value just by proxy of just being there more often. Um, so I think it's going to be a huge economic reason to go premium, along with just being a huge feature on its own.
So, and I know you hate these questions, but Rafiki 2.0, you said last month, you kind of reiterated it that you're looking towards the end of this month. So let's say towards the end of January, early February is the time frame there. The For You feed, is that a separate rollout or is that part of Rafiki 2.0? And if it is a separate rollout, I mean, what type of gap would you expect? A month, a couple months, a quarter, a few weeks? I mean, what type of time frame might you be looking at on that?
Yeah, I think it will be a separate rollout, and I think it will be. I don't really have a good timeline for it, to be honest. It's going to be a separate rollout, and it probably won't be too far behind. It'll be the next major thing we focus on. So we're doing Rafiki. Like there's two main parts of Rafiki 2.0. It is the 2.0 model, so all the premium user data getting trained, and then it is the interface for Rafiki, the ChatGPT like interface. So that's all going to be on day one of 2.0. And then I would say after those two things, the main focus will be the For You feed. So I don't have a specific timeline on that, but I would assume it would be in the weeks, not months, after 2.0 goes live.
Okay, excellent. Um, well, we're at over 90 minutes or 1 hour, 29 minutes, according to the Restream feed. Do you have, and I know I missed a lot when I was locked out. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to convey? Any type of summary that you want to throw out there regarding Rafiki?
Um, no, I think we covered it. I mean, it was pretty extensive. Um, we I would say like keep your eyes open for the 2.0 model. It's going to come sooner than you think. Um, and you know, a lot of what we do is economics, right? So the economics of going premium, I think, are going to be very no brainer, very much a no brainer. So if you're not premium now, I would definitely consider going premium because you get all the features on InLeo. You obviously earn more because you appear more in the feeds, but then you're going to get all this access to Rafiki, and Rafiki's going to get all this access to you. And I think that that's a huge value prop. So I am kind of on this mission of like we need to get more premium users for a lot of reasons, but we've made the value prop, especially with Rafiki 2.0, so insane. I just think it's like if you're a regular user, you're insane if you're not premium. And I think Rafiki 2.0 is just going to make that really obvious. Um, so yeah, I think we're at a very interesting moment. I mean, all these AI companies are raising hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, it's nuts. Like I think XAI just raised like 20 or 25 billion dollars or something. Um, and then another AI company just came out today. They raised like 15 billion dollars. So it is like we're in this era of AI raising all this money, and Leo and the Leo ecosystem. We're building all of this on a shoestring. But we're building models that are really competitive to these other models. And that's going to get really obvious with Rafiki 2.0. So, the fact that we're building all of this on a shoestring without the billions of dollars that they're raising, I think is incredible. It also goes to show you that the economic value of Rafiki and all the things we're building for Leo in general, they all flow to the Leo, token holders. So, you know, owning Leo means owning the value of these things as opposed to like private equity and corporations that are amassing these billions of dollars on these other models. We're building it in a completely different way where you the end user, you just use these things, you own the token, you stack the token, and you get all the economic value while using the thing, right? So I'm really excited about what that means in terms of the mission for Leo, which I think is a good way for me to leave it, which is the mission of Leo is to democratize financial knowledge and access. And what better way of doing that than giving everybody access to a open, transparent, on-chain model for AI where all the economic value flows to the token holder. So that is my that is my mission. That is Leo's mission. Everything we do is built in that lens, and that applies to Rafiki. Very much so.
I do have one final question, and you probably laugh at, and it changes gear a little bit. But how about a quick update on SwapKit? Without, I guess, Tuesday, so it's been three days. And you mentioned a number of large, well-known entities that were interested. You want to drop a little Lion's Den Alpha by dropping the name, or do you prefer not to?
um, yeah, good question. So LeoKit is a API that allows you to integrate cross chain swaps in literally just like a plug and play, very simple API. There's really only one major competitor out there that's doing this right now, and LeoKit is kind of like the next generation of that technology. I think it's significantly better, and it offers more features. It offers more routes. It's easier to implement. It's also we charge a lower fee, so it's kind of like a no-brainer ad. But we obviously need to build the branding, and the competitor has been building for years, so we've got a long way to go in terms of putting ourselves out there and getting integrations. We've got some really big names that I think you guys will be surprised by. I cannot announce them until they're ready to go live. So once they go live, we'll do full announcements of them. But keep in mind this is the technology that runs LeoDex. It is available now at leokit.dev. So go to that website, and if you know anybody who wants to integrate cross chain swaps, or maybe you want to vibe code your own cross chain swapping app of some kind, you're welcome to request an API key, and then you can build whatever you want, and you can have cross chain swaps, and you set your own fee, so you can monetize yourself instantly. So you can basically build your own LeoDex, and charge your own fee. And then LeoKit charges a very small fee. It's 10 basis points. So, for example, you can charge 40 basis points to your user. So your user will get a 50 basis point fee, which is, LeoDex charges 45 basis points. So pretty comparable there. Excuse me, 10 basis points goes to LeoKit, and then the rest goes to you. So if you charge 50 total, 10 will go to LeoKit, and then 40 goes to you. So we are in the process of working with a lot of integrators. This is where I'm spending a lot of my time right now. Getting integrators to sign up and get LeoKit integrated to their application. And 100% of the LeoKit inflows goes into the SLeo pool. So that is the USDC pool for all Leo stakers. So yeah, if you're a Leo holder, like you mentioned, do your part and go out there. I see Senor Coconut said I'm trying to put the word out about LeoKit. So yeah, if you're a Leo stakeholder, get out there, try to get people to integrate LeoKit. Share the link to leokit.dev. You never know who you know or who you know that knows somebody else who might have an app, or nobody knows someone who has an app. So really just spreading the integration of LeoKit is vital. I think it's extremely important from an economic standpoint for us. So get out there and be hyperactive when it comes to that. And that would be my thoughts on LeoKit. It's very much B2B, so it's completely different than anything else we've ever built, which is all B2C. So like everything Leo's ever done is all like us to you guys, right? LeoKit is very much like us to other businesses, us to other apps. So it's like a whole new ball game, but it's one that has a lot of economic value potential. So I talked about this before, but the number one KPI is net economic inflows for Leo as a token. So NEI is the focus, and LeoKit I think has the most potential to bring inflows to the ecosystem. Every single integration leads to swaps and also leads to future potential integrations. So I think it's going to be pretty amazing. So spread the word about LeoKit.
I tried to get the name out of them, guys. It didn't work, but hey, don't know till you ask. So
That's true.
on that Tuesday is the weekly AMA. I presume you will have it again, and there may be
Yep.
some updates how the progress is going with some of the rollout of LeoKit and maybe some other things. And who knows, maybe Rafiki 2.0 will be out by then, maybe not. So you'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, Spaces shut down a while ago, and I guess on this one we can end it.
Cool. Thanks, Task. Thanks, everybody. And we will see